All right, welcome to season 2 of the Band Shop Podcast. We're here with Brudda Murray.
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas.
What's up, dude?
Humbled.
What's up?
We had a good time. We shot a good set.
Yeah, you
It
did.
turned good. It turned out good. You guys had a nice setup here. It's really nice.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we've been working on this stuff for a while. Like, COVID done fucked everything up.
Yeah, well, I think it took its toll on everybody. But yeah, you guys
Damn
had a
you,
nice
Rona.
setup. Nice professional.
We're trying to be. I mean, we still have a little ways to go with what we want to do, but we're getting there. And
Well, this is fancy smancy to me, so. Yeah.
Hey.
well, I mean, suppose we should probably address the fact that like we've kind of known each other a long time.
Yeah, several years.
Yeah.
Several
Like,
years. Between
we
band,
all
playing
have.
shows together. We didn't live too far from each other. You know,
No.
Delphi, Monticello. And, I mean, yeah, at least 10 years, probably.
Oh, easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were like one of the top drummers in the area that people would, like when we would talk about like drummers in the area at the time, like you
Thank
were
you.
always in that list.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
thank
sure.
you.
So
I should pick that up. I should be drumming more. I should.
yeah,
still.
you do. You need to start coming out here and hanging out more
Yeah,
when we
you
got the kit
guys
set up and you can.
Have
Jam
such a
around.
good thing going on, and all the good guitarists are taken, so I'm on the hunt. If anybody out there wants to play, we can play anything, all genres.
Especially metal.
Yeah, especially heavy stuff. I prefer.
I know a
double bass.
guitarist that's a slut for music, so
Who's that?
I think he's sitting to your left.
We can work some business
I don't know
out.
what, I don't
man.
know what you're talking about.
I was gonna say you better not be talking about me.
Nah.
No, my problem is that I'm already starting to like whore myself out too much with like too many different projects.
Man,
like,
get
I
it
got-
out there.
I got some stuff in the works that I guess I'm not gonna talk about just yet, but
Oh, it's on the low.
because there's
yeah.
yeah,
It's the low.
yeah,
low.
it's the low and very low in fact right now.
The more content, the better, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and you never know what's gonna grab somebody's attention. You might think that
Well, and
this thing is your best project, and then you do a side thing, and
I know quite a
That-
few people that are in like at least 2 or 3 different projects, all differing. Some being in the same
I was
wheelhouse.
gonna say,
Yeah.
including
Because-
yourself.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm in 2. So like, it is what it is. Like, I wouldn't do something in the same wheelhouse, but like the 2 bands I'm in are very separate, so
Mhm.
it's doable.
Well, it takes a lot to juggle, man. It's a
Oh,
lot to
yeah.
juggle. It's enough to juggle one band.
time management.
You know,
though, is
yeah.
really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's like how dedicated are you? To
Yeah.
it, you know?
Well, and like we were talking off camera before all this too. It's like especially as you get older and you start
Oh,
having
yeah.
families and kids.
Well, it becomes
Yep.
less a hobby and less like just like a thing you do on the side.
Right.
It becomes more something that like you make a business and.
Well,
there
it's
is
either-
business to
yeah,
Come
it.
to
it's
that
either-
line. You
it's
come to
either
that
you
point.
take it super serious and it becomes a business, or
Right.
it is just a hobby that you
Yeah.
only do at random.
There's,
Absolutely.
it's only one or the other,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and like
It's not like in your 20s or like your teens when you can kind of be whatever,
Yeah.
just kind of let it go.
especially when you live with mom and dad. Like if you start that young, it's like, oh well, you have the comfortability of having mom and dad there, so it's like, oh,
Yeah.
can you help me with this,
Mhm.
or you work at 16 and you just save your money up because you don't have to pay rent. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Responsibilities
oh,
take over
yeah.
quick, bro.
Yeah, but then you can become adult, and it's like, okay, like something has to change. They're like, something has to give. You got to do something if you really want it. Whether it's do like what these 2 do, which is like the production side of things, and they've been gearing more towards that lately, and
Yep.
putting the playing more to the side. Not that they don't play, obviously, because we
Yeah.
do play shows with Eros, but they've focused more on that. And me, I've not got to that point where I feel like I'm washed up. So like,
Hey,
hey,
Who the fuck you calling washed
Yeah,
up?
what age is that normally?
I'm
Like
not-
30?
But let's be real.
Yeah,
Like
coming
you
close.
guys are.
Tyler, I think we need to find that paddle.
Yeah,
You enjoy it
No,
too
like
much.
I'm not being mean, but it's just
No.
like you're
But
you're
seriously,
getting that,
fuck you.
You're getting to that age where like Finney has 2 kids, like you have 2 kids,
washed
like
up as hell.
you have like
Hey,
That's
you,
funny.
you
I got
guys
3
have
kids.
talent and you play well, so it's not like you're washed up, but like you're getting older and you're realizing that
you have a lot less time.
yeah, and like for
yeah.
me, I'm pushing 30, but I'm not 30 yet, so it's like, and I'm still seeing bands like Every Time I Die in their 40s rocking
Yeah,
it
but
out.
a lot
So
of
I'm
them,
like,
a lot of them got their start when they were still in their 20s.
well, yeah, but like
Yeah.
they
you
put in all the hard work
but
when they
then
were in
you
their
see
20s.
these bands though that are like coming out fresh and they have older people in them and they're doing things with it too. So
It
gives-
can happen, and
it
I think
gives
in
me hope
today's
for
day
it.
and age, it's actually a little easier for that to happen
Oh yeah,
because of the
technology.
fact that there is so much more like
easier.
like we were even talking before about how like technology's gotten so cheap and easy now
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
there's a lot more
Accessible
artists.
and-
Oh yeah.
Like, which can be a problem too because you have an oversaturation of like the market. But,
tons of the same.
well, especially like with what you're doing now, like with doing hip hop stuff,
Trust
like
me, dude. Yeah, there's a lot of cute.
dude, like
being
just
SoundCloud rappers.
there's shit tons of SoundCloud rappers.
Yeah, bro.
And the thing is that
Gotta
like
stand out.
Yeah.
as much as I mean, I like hip hop and R&B and stuff as much as I like listening to metal and hardcore and things like that.
Yep.
But to me, it's like you have to have something that catches my attention for me to really listen.
Oh yeah.
Like, and so many of like the SoundCloud rappers in particular, you know, no offense,
Lack of substance.
yeah.
like
They suck.
exactly. It's like the
Exactly
same
what it
old
is.
thing over and over and over again. Like,
Auto tune, crazy. Which is whatever gets your rocks off, but just that doesn't do that for me. So
the thing I personally love
They
about
make
listening to
millions,
your
some of them.
stuff is that you have a little bit of like an old school hip hop vibe to you too.
yeah, I try to.
That is-
I'm
Which,
in-
given
heavily-
obviously because I'm the old fuck here.
Yeah,
like,
right. We're a bunch of
that's
old
what
heads. That's
I-
what they call us, old heads. Right?
Yeah, like-
accurate.
But that's like the stuff that like I remember being, you know, exposed to as a
Mhm.
kid and, you know, adolescence and stuff, like the early hip hop stuff.
Yep. Yes,
And-
sir.
So like when I hear you flowing, I'm like, oh man, there's a little bit of that old school in there.
It's heavily influenced by a lot of older. You know, and a lot of more even modern rappers. I mean,
Mhm.
they're still coming out. Cal Scrooby, a lot of well, of course, Mac Miller, R.I.P. But as far as old, I mean, every freaking rapper has to say Eminem has has
dude.
influenced him at least once, right?
Yeah.
And he did. You know, back then, Nelly, 50 Cent. Growing up, listening to all that stuff was.
I was gonna say, and especially in our area, knowing because of like our cross passing from like skating and
Mhm.
music, and then like mutual friends and all
Yeah.
of that, like that music was very predominant in our group.
It was everywhere, dude.
Because there was so much diversity. So there was like
Oh, yeah.
the metal and hardcore, but then there was that old kind of like gangster rap, like, you know what I mean? From
Yeah.
like the late 80s, early 90s, and then like all the way up
Well,
through
you
the
would-
90s.
Because like hanging out at the skate parks
Yeah.
and stuff, like we'd all like hang out at the skate parks and shit.
Yeah.
And you would have like kids, your playlist would go from like Devil Wears Prada to like Tupac.
Yeah.
And
that's
it was
exactly
like,
what
And
and
we're
it
all
was
vibing.
great.
We're all
Like,
vibing to it. Yeah.
like,
Hell
Well,
yeah.
and like at first it wasn't necessarily that way, but because of me being friends with a lot of skaters in Delphi, and then like me being a metalhead, and just them having to get used to me like being that person, they you get used to it after a while,
Mhm.
and then they're just like, oh, okay, like we get it, we understand it, and then like your playlists at that point become crazy because then you start intertwining all of this shit, and everybody actually vibes with it. Granted, they may still vibe more with like the R&B rap stuff, but
Yeah.
they would tolerate the hardcore stuff enough to like still skate to it and get into it, and not get like angry or be like, oh, shut that shit off.
Yeah, next.
So it was like, yeah, but then it made it more diverse for us metalheads too, because then we experienced a lot more of that diverse
Mhm.
rap.
I admittedly have been a long time since I've listened to heavy stuff. Years ago, it was all Attack, and I was asking Alexandria, and We Came as Romans, and
The scene days. Basically.
yeah,
well,
those
a lot of the problem with that was that
You
it
know?
became the same thing like we were talking about with the
Yeah.
SoundCloud rappers.
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah.
became very
It-
cookie cutter,
Yeah,
like
it
the
did.
same thing.
Well,
It
that's
did.
the thing.
They're
Like,
very
that's the problem
similar.
with technology too. Is like with it becoming easier, so you can put more content out. There's a lot more people putting content out, and when you have that thing that's brand new and good and amazing, then you have all these dick writers.
we
They
got
come
something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
like,
they come
oh,
in. And,
Oh,
Yeah,
let me get a
exactly.
piece of that, and then
Yeah.
they like everyone wants a piece of
Now,
it.
don't
And
get me
then it's
wrong,
Like,
upon
we could do
occasion-
this real easy, and
You get somebody
Yeah.
who gets influenced by somebody, but then adds their own spin to it. And then
Exactly.
You're like,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a
That-
difference.
that's
There's a
great,
difference
though.
between being influenced and then like just straight up trying
biting
to like.
it, just straight
Yeah.
up biting their style
well, yeah,
entirely.
because you can take little nibbles, and then like
Yeah.
take little nibbles over here, and then take little nibbles over here, and then take nibbles, and then you're like making it your own, and then that's
Correct.
cool. But like
If you don't
taking a
straight
fucking
up copy 'em,
like
like,
conch, I'm gonna
Yeah,
just
carbon copy of it.
yeah, like I'm gonna be a shark and take a whole big chunk out of you. Like no, like that's not
Right.
that's not cool. But unfortunately, that happens more than the other in today's music scene, and that's what kills a lot of genres. Because even like bands like Knocked Loose, you know what I mean? Like they weren't the first band to do that, but they were the first one to make that popular music, like make it more popular.
Mhm.
And then then you had all these other bands just like jump on that bandwagon, and it was just like, oh,
I'm sure the
fuck.
evolution of music over time, since music was a thing ever, has been that.
Well,
problem.
Oh, I'm
it's been-
sure.
People
I was
biting
gonna say,
off
it's
of
actually
jazz, and then
interesting.
they turned it into blues. Or
It's actually
whatever.
interesting. One of the podcasts that I was listening to lately, is called No Dogs in Space, which is part of the Last Podcast Network, which is a huge network. A lot of these people that are going to be watching this and stuff know that. But like, it's like a music history podcast, and they've been doing a whole series on the punk scene.
Yeah,
and following all these bands. And some of the stuff you're talking about are things that were. It's been going on since the dawn of time when it comes to music. That kind of stuff, as far as like the this suddenly sells. We're gonna try to copy it and make a million other versions of it to try to sell it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they did a whole series on explaining the history. Well, a whole episode explaining the history of Surfin' Bird, that '60s. About a bird.
Oh yeah,
that song. They did a whole episode, like an hour and a half, 2-hour episode, like on the history of just that song, because it had been influenced. You know, it had influenced some of the punk bands and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But the fun thing was, listening to that, they had that hit with that song, the Trashmen did.
Yep.
But immediately, the label wanted them to follow it up with another song that was like virtually identical to it. Like, because they're like, oh, well, this sold, so everybody wants
making
this.
songs like that.
So they literally, like, their next hit, the next song they released was like almost a carbon copy of it, and it flopped massively.
Yeah, man.
Like,
well,
and this was back in the '60s.
It's marketing.
So, like,
it's a market. You're trying to hit the same target again and again.
That's where I feel like, honestly, a lot of these like marketing people and like, you know, A&R guys at record labels and stuff really don't know what they're talking about.
Like, half of them aren't even musicians. They're like, hey, you did this once. We'll just, yeah, like I said, just keep throwing it on the wall until it sticks.
Like 5-Finger Cunt Punch. They found one sound and then they copied it for the rest.
The thing that sucks with them is like their early stuff was heavy.
Well, they didn't find. What they did was they were like, okay, we're heavy, we're gonna be cool. And then they're like, okay, this isn't selling like we want to.
They found their market,
so
and then they just placated to it.
Let's make it just a little softer. And then they did that next.
Out?
And then they made that next. Then they made that next album that was like softer. And then they're like, oh, this sold. We're gonna stay to it.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, all right, cool.
And then they just became absolute butt rock.
Like Lamb of God, where they do every other album is the same as the one before.
Hey, man, I get down with some Flame of God. I haven't heard any of their newer
stuff. Don't get me wrong, their
dude.
first album, banger.
The first two, I absolutely
love.
love.
The second one was
they started kind of repeating
because basically,
the kings of that, Disturbed.
Oh fuck!
Disturbed has repeated themselves time and time again.
They're like the Nickelback of hardcore.
Oh, dude. But I don't know about that though, because like I have to give one credit, because Nickelback.
I love David Draymond's voice.
Nickelback's first album, there was a couple good songs on it before they like sold the fuck out and went completely mainstream.
No, dude, I used to drum to Silver Side Up like constantly.
Dude, yeah, that first album.
There were some good songs.
Yeah,
on
that first album was really good, and then they sold out after that, and I'm just like, but why? You actually had something.
Well, but then the problem is that they also then just leaned into the campiness because you know later on, I mean, they started seeing like what was selling, and I remember it's like, what was the fucking song where it was like, I like pants around you, like
oh god, it's like a Buck Cherry kind of
yeah, and
shit,
I'm like,
dude. What the hell?
By that point I'm like, okay, you guys are just straight up playing into
Rockstar was okay, man. I admit that.
Yeah, it's like
I have this voice, so I'm gonna play this stereotype.
Tyler and I have a little but like, you know,
but what?
Inside joke thing when it comes to Photograph. With that song,
I can believe
because of our old roommate. So every time I hear "Look at this photograph," I always think of our old roommate Neil.
Every time it makes me laugh too.
Because he looks hard, like Nickelback.
Dude, we all relate to being like 15. You're all 15 listening to Nickelback, getting sad, like Hinder. Oh my god, dude! I remember listening to a lot of shit. That was on the radio. There's all like that.
Yeah, I remember those days of having to listen to shit music.
I dare you to tell me to walk through fire.
Maybe one of these days I'll put that video like like in our Patreon or something. That behind the scenes video of that old school video of Neil and I doing that out the window, so you guys can kind of be in on the inside joke a little bit. But
yeah, I love being parts of inside joke. I like.
So what, like for you, like what was it that like got you started in like realizing that like you could rap, like you could rhyme, you could write stuff? Or how long have you actually been writing like that?
It came natural at first, and then I started writing poetry, right? So you like I said, man, you start out with nursery rhymes. You start with like you sound bad for a long time, just like anything else, man. You're gonna suck at it for a long time. And then, the hardest thing about rapping, of course, flowing is difficult, but just writing the material that has some substance, that's not just the same repetition of what's been said over. I mean, in hip hop has a broad variety of things to talk about.
Oh yeah.
But then they all kind of narrow down to like a and so
it
it's
tends
gotta
to be the same kind of 3 or 4 themes that run through a lot of.
So what do you do, right? Do you want to sound like everybody else, or? And I'm not saying I bring something like completely new or different to the table, but I've really tried to just stray away, and I put a lot of work into multi-syllabic rhyme schemes and just really oversaturating it with a lot of thought. I'm like, it'll take me a long time just to write 16 bars.
Well, I've noticed that because like listening through your stuff, like especially like subject matter, like your stuff is so much more deep than the majority of hip hop stuff.
Thanks. Yeah,
like,
I try to.
You have like you were saying, you have a message. You're not just, writing about boats and hoes.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Well, I guess that's what mostly what I wanted to make music for is. I mean, we've all got like rough past. Like we've all got something that's gotten us down over the course of your life, and that was my outlet, man. That's just what I like to talk about. This is like I talk about what got me through, these situations, and life's tough on all of us. Things are tough all over, bro. So, and and then create a positive spin on it, and then put some jumpy music to it, and then make it sound good. And it's like it's a sad situation, but it makes it cool because then you got experience, right? So that's what's good about having.
It's like I even noticed listening through your catalog of like what you have on like your SoundCloud and stuff.
Yep.
Like I noticed a shift even from like your early stuff.
Big
to
shift.
what you've been doing more recently. I could tell.
I was like a partier stage.
I could tell like the direction changed.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it wasn't like a drastic change because you could kind of see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, especially with like the most 2 recent ones that you have up there, like
I was very observant of
are
You're right.
far more like message driven than the earlier stuff.
Rather
like
than just smoke
it's like you
pot
found
and
your
party
purpose.
and-
Like you found what you wanted to do with it.
What I wanted to say, I guess.
Yeah,
I found what I
exactly.
wanted to say,
Yeah.
and whether it resonates with my listeners, up to them. But I try to intend to draw a certain audience. Actually, I don't make music that just kind of. Well, and you could just throw on at any party and bump your head to, which that's good music to make. That's what sells, like what we're saying. But I want to make music that's like this. A lot of people like you have to take time to comprehend it, I guess. You're not going to listen to it one time and remember everything I said or catch everything I said. You're going to have to listen to it a few times.
Dude, there were times when literally like
soak it in.
I got caught up first by the rhyme scheme and I was like, "Oh shit, that's a good rhyme." And then I was like, "But wait, go back." And I'd play it again and I'd be like, "Oh shit, you're actually saying something."
Cool.
Like, actually saying something that like has a meaning to it.
That's why I put my lyrics on YouTube. I put them on because I don't know how many times I've listened to an artist and been like, man, that was good. And then I'm like, I have to go and then search for what the lyrics are. That way I can read as I'm listening to it because it's easier to comprehend that way. So that's why I always put, you'll find my lyrics in my videos because I want people to be able to literally just scroll through what I'm saying as I'm saying it, and just it helps them comprehend it. And yeah. So, and then as far as being to answer your question, which was what made me realize I could rap.
Yeah.
Drumming. After realizing that just keeping a beat was easy for me, man, you're just talking to a beat. So then you just play with flows and you just play with timing, and then you're like, oh, I can go fast here and then go slow here. And now my biggest problem with drumming too is I'm always just trying to go too freaking fast, and then it's just too much. I've actually had people tell me to slow it down, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, because then you can comprehend it faster, and then it's easier to listen to. Sometimes it's just like da-da-da-da-da-da, and it's like, okay, like Jesus Christ, man.
Some of my favorite things to watch are like when you do you'll do like a short live stream or something where like you'll just
when I gotta let it out
stuff, or you'll have a couple of bars that you have kind of that you're working on,
back,
and you don't really have like you'll sometimes do it with music, sometimes not with music, and like I'll listen to you do it, and I'll be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, sometimes I just gotta get out of my system, dude.
Yeah.
And now I'm very fortunate to have a studio, a GIC studio. Shout out. He's great engineer. He does a hell of a job and makes me sound real good and crispy. But before, I didn't necessarily have a good connect to go record anywhere. So, like, the only way for me to post or just get my content out there is just me staring at my phone and rapping to it and, like, putting a beat on, you know? And it's, you know, it worked. And matter of fact, I get more views now if I just, like, say I just went on Facebook Live or I post a video on Facebook of me just rapping to my phone. That gets more views than my recorded, you know, studio quality shit on YouTube. You know, that gets way more views. So it's like, if that's what's getting people's attention enough to find me on YouTube and find the more quality, you know, product, and so be it. You know, let's all hop on there and rap for some people. They like it. People, it's convenient. They're flipping through their phones to see a video. They don't have to go out of their way, you know. So you got to be in their faces with it. I'm sure you guys know that. That's what marketing is. You always got to be in their face. Don't stay consistent. Like you were telling me earlier off cam about how you would chop it up and you would release like one song a day instead of just releasing it all at once. That consistency is important.
Well, there was an article I just read. Who was it? It was the guy that was in charge of Spotify, actually, was talking about how, you know, the days of artists being able to make money off of like putting out entire albums is pretty much over, because in this day and age, everything is so fast paced.
Got to put singles out,
and there's so, like we said, there's so much content.
And it's so easy to do again.
You
so
basically
no
have to. You do better off releasing singles or doing small EPs more often than you do like long form albums. So it's like, even for like, you know, with us with Eros and things like that, we've pretty much always done smaller, shorter length stuff, within the exception of the last album. But that was, even that time wise is only like around 30 minutes, maybe 25.
And doesn't that suck? Because you know, if you get in the album mode, you spend time and then you spend time advertising.
I will personally
it, like,
always
coming out this day, and then it drops, and it's like, this is the big day. Hopefully, everybody watches
it.
And then it's like, oh, I could have just released that song when we recorded it 2 months ago, and then it probably would have been huge.
And it makes you wonder, like, and I have questioned this, like, if I had just released it track by track every few days, I think also people would have given each track more time to like listen to and let sink into their head and kind of. Because I noticed, like, even like with our album, and like with any really releases, I'm sure you guys noticed it even with Controvert.
Yeah.
Like, there are certain songs that people just don't listen to on it.
Yeah.
And it might not even have anything to do with like the quality of the song. It's just that maybe by that point they've lost interest and they've moved on to something else.
Yeah. Your best songs at the end of the album, they're like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck?
And I mean, I noticed that with like our last Eros album, like when I was looking, you know, tracking the analytics of it. I noticed that there were several songs that were like nobody was really listening to, and you could see a graph of like the first few songs, and it was just, as the album would progress, the listenership would just go down and down and down, and by the time you get to the last track on the album, hardly anybody's listening to it, because by the time they get there, they're bored with it. They don't give it that much time, and nobody is really gonna just like skip to the end of the album and listen to that song by itself.
They'll think it's doing it shit ass backwards, because a lot of people
and
make
so
their
like,
album.
But I'm kind of conflicted on it because of being a little bit old school with things. Like, I love albums, especially albums that have like a concept
and keep it throughout
and
the whole
a theme, and it all runs together, and it has a purpose.
Absolutely.
And I still think that people should still do that, but also understand that you have to be putting out content more regularly as well.
The thing is, though, you're better off to do, if you're gonna do those like theme things, do them in EPs still, because you can release, you know, 25-minute EPs easily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you just do the stories in 25 minutes, and then do another set for 25 minutes.
Well, that's kind of what we were planning on doing with, you know, The Awakening, our last album. You know, it's no secret really, but it was supposed to be part of like a split 2-album thing.
Cool.
And eventually, yes, we will get around to doing the other half of that story. But
suspense.
Life has just kind of changed, and the band had kind of evolved itself and changed, and I didn't want to force us in a direction that wasn't naturally happening. So it's like, at some point, I know we'll come back around to it and finish it. But
that's probably admittedly my weakness is having one concept and to be able to release an album like that. If I were to release an album, like just say right now, I just took all my songs and put them on a disc and said, here, this is an album, called it an album, It would
just be an album full of singles.
Yeah, it would
basically.
not be fluent at all. It'd just be all, like you said, you could even see the change in style as I move.
And it wasn't just necessarily
so
like, I mean, there was even a change in stylistically as far as your performance. Even I could see I could see where like you were testing out some different things early on, and then like you found what suited you more.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then so you stuck more to your strengths and not so much on the things that you were weaker at. But definitely lyrically, I feel like it miles above. Like the newer stuff is like way better, like theme wise.
I put a lot of extra time into it. I mean, I admittedly would just throw raps together because it can be easy, but like I've really got hard on myself about not taking the easy way out. Which like when you're writing, I'm sure you guys know when you write guitar, it's like I could just do this and it'll sound good, and it's like I would write a bar and be like, I could make that. That's such a
that's the problem of being an artist, though, is that you're always going to be your worst critic.
Yeah, really. By the time I get to the fourth rhyme, and I'm like really just trying to, that's what's hard. Rhyme once, then you rhyme again, then you rhyme again, and that fourth time, it's like, all right, like starting to run out of ideas. And sometimes you'll just throw something in there real quick that rhymes, sounds good,
dude,
but like it's not even that clever,
I am notorious for adding in filler riffs here and there.
Yeah.
I do the same thing, though. Like,
and then he usually gives me so much shit for it too. He'll listen to it and be like, "Dude, really?
He's trying to finish the bar.
Really?
well, yeah.
When you had a cool riff here and a cool riff here, and you just bridged it with this bullshit."
Well, that's why a lot of the times why we write better together when we would do like old ACD and stuff, because I would stop you from doing that.
Yeah.
Like, so that transition there is what you really think should be there. You're like, well, I mean,
I didn't have anything better.
I mean, I don't know, but like I couldn't think of anything better, and I'm just like, bro, like why don't you do like this? And you're like, oh.
Well, you need that. You need to bounce that off each other and have some.
That's why it's a lot harder to like do things on your own.
Oh, way harder.
That's why, like, especially in both bands that I'm in, it's that way, because it's like Zach was doing everything, and now he still kind of is, but like I'm willing to like write jam style, so like I'll like jam stuff, and he can like record it, and like we can come back to it. Especially with having the technology with cameras where I can know what I'm playing without having to like really think about it, because I can just go back and watch it and be like, oh, that's where I was, which is convenient as fuck.
Yeah, because when you're improving, you might think of something real
yeah,
clever.
But as long as you go back,
forget it in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
honestly,
as long as you go back and watch it, it really saves a lot of things, to be honest. As long as I can focus, like, oh, there's a camera there, so like when I have a part that I like, I can focus on being in front of the camera so I can watch what I'm playing, and then we can repeat it.
And to be honest, the whole reason I learned how to do all of this as far as audio production, video production, all that stuff, it all stemmed from the fact that like when I was early teens, when I was learning to play music and stuff, like my memory was like, my short-term memory is so bad about things when
Same
it comes
here.
to like writing riffs. Like I would sit down and jam and I'd come up with these great riffs, but I had no way to remember it. And I'll admit it, I was way too lazy to sit down and hand write out everything. I could do it,
Oh,
but
yeah.
Dude,
it just took so long to do that, and so I was just like, fuck it. So I started learning how to record just for my own memory's sake.
Yeah.
And then it was a matter of like, I was, we didn't have a lot of other musicians at that time when I was younger. Like,
at least not in our area.
Not in our area at the time, like where we grew up.
Unless you were mobile.
So I started learning how to play other instruments as well, so I could just record all the parts.
Yeah, dude, you're
and put it all
versatile as hell. I
together.
gotta give that to you.
So that
Vocals, drums.
It's
Yeah,
all
it's
out of
versatile.
necessity. It was literally all out of necessity.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that was the only way I could get what was in here out in a way that I would be able to remember it, so that at some point when I did get other people that I could have help play, they could like, this is what was in my head. And like,
yeah, you could just show up and be like, all right, I already have the drums written, the guitar, the bass, the vocals. Now you just have to learn them.
which
pretty
on the
much.
one hand can be fun if you
Do it
got
all
people
at
that are willing to do that, and then it can also cause problems if you have other writers in the band too,
Yeah, that's true.
because they can sometimes take offense to that.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm not trying to offend
That's
you.
not how
but
I would
it's-
do it.
I
yeah.
just, I'm sorry. That's just kind of how I am.
When I was learning the Theriot set, I had to come a couple things. I'm like, that's not what I would play there. I'm sorry.
When
I
I'm
can't do
always,
that.
I mean, you can ask these guys. I mean, I'm always open to suggestions. If there's things, like if one of them, like if I say I come to them with a whole song, like roughed out, and they listen to it, and usually what happens is, and they both give me the same thing, they'll both be like, that sounds too much like something you did here.
Mhm.
Both of them will do that to me. So I'll be like,
in my
okay.
case, I just like wait until he forgets and re-records it, and just like he's like, "How was that? How did that get played again?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey, it was like this," and he's like, "Oh yeah,
You're
that's
right.
that's right."
He's
Yeah.
like,
Or he'll do
remember.
something very predictable, like he
Yeah.
does sometimes. It's like, oh, I know what you're going to go to next.
Oh, yeah.
Switch it up.
Yeah, both of you, because I've played in so many bands and stuff with you guys over the years. Like, you both know me so well. But that's where, like, I'll get the look from, and both of you will give me the look, but Tyler in particular has this look when he's just kind of like, like,
This is what we're gonna
Really?
drag this out.
really, that what you're gonna do that? Like you've done a million times before? Like,
Come on now, we get it. Come on, you've been doing this for a while, but
and that's
Switch it
honestly
up.
one of the things I kind of envy about doing, like, just doing hip hop, where like you either hire somebody else to do all your production stuff for you or whatever, or if you even do it yourself.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I feel like that would be so much more freeing
oh,
to not have to think about any of that
Yep.
and just have one thing to focus on. Like, my problem is because for so many years I've written all these parts for all these
Yeah.
things. It's hard for me to just focus on one thing at a time.
I'm about right where you are. I'm out of
Like-
necessity. I need to be. I'm starting to learn how to. Yeah, I just bought a laptop. I'm starting to learn how to record my own vocals. Starting to learn how to make myself sound, because I rely on somebody else for that. I have to go and record somewhere, and then. I mean, he does a great job. I'm not saying anything about you, Alex, but I'm just saying, what if as I'm recording my own vocals, I can trick it out the way I want.
Yeah,
I
and you
guess,
might come
type
up with
thing,
something
you know?
on the fly
Yeah.
at home
And been like,
that you
"Yo,
would have never thought of in the studio.
Yep.
And
Go record it.
yeah, and quickly before you forget it, go do it. You know,
Yeah, that's the
like-
dream. Have a home studio. I could just think of a rhyme sporadically, walk to the garage, record it, save it, come back to it tomorrow and be like, oh, I could add on to that, or, work
The only
with it.
downside is, like, going back to what we said earlier, is that we are our own worst critics.
yeah.
So then when you have
your own freedom to like take time,
Exactly.
then things
Yeah.
don't get released because you
Yeah,
sit on it for
yeah,
and
exactly.
we both
Never
know what
record-
that's like,
never release it.
having
I was
Dude,
gonna say it's like a blessing and a curse to have your own studio, because like
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
even
very
when
much
I'm just
so.
mixing shit, I'll go back to it and I'm like, well, shit.
That
Oh
makes a lot
God,
of
how many
sense,
times?
'cause-
Like, I mean, it's all public knowledge now, but like when we were working on, helping produce the Controvert EP,
Yeah.
like, how many times did you go back and like remix
I'm pretty sure
the same thing?
I'm pretty sure he still goes
Like-
back every once in a while.
Oh, I know he
and
does
fucks
because
with
I've seen the project files in there.
Oh, God. Yeah, draft
Even after
2,
it's
draft
released.
3, draft
Yeah,
4.
like it's been
Even though it's
released.
been released for a while, he still goes back and plays.
Well,
with
part
it.
of that's because I'm trying to figure stuff out and hone in my skills and stuff like that. But I mean,
Well, yeah, and that's a real like trash canny. Like it's a different tone. So if you can master a rough tone like that, then you can basically do whatever the fuck you
Mhm.
want.
dude,
So like I get that. That's part of the reason why I really liked you guys doing the engineering, was because we could keep the raw tracks and be
Mhm.
able to like have the potential of just messing with them and doing stuff with them. It could have been better, obviously, but you learn from it and you grow.
It's all
from
experience, man.
Yeah.
It's all a growing experience for everything. I mean, and like, getting back to like what we were talking about before. I mean, it was like when I was listening to your stuff, it's that seeing that growth.
Mhm.
That like the more you do it, the more you experiment with it, the more you get comfortable with it.
Yeah, and you got to understand how much
Like-
time is in between those releases, too.
Oh yeah,
Because I didn't have a studio to just go to, and you make a good point about saying if I had a studio at home,
at
By the
first,
time
here's
I
the thing. I
go-
guarantee you, at first, you'll be super prolific,
Mhm.
and you'll put out a whole bunch of stuff, and then all of a sudden, you'll be like,
sit on all the
"Shit, what am I gonna do now?" Or
Mhm.
you'll go back and just keep like,
tweaking
"Oh,
stuff.
I don't like
and-
that line
yeah.
here. I want to change that line."
I could definitely.
and
see
then you'll
myself
have
doing
stuff that you'll still end up sitting on for years,
Mhm.
or it may never get released. I mean, there's
Yeah.
shit literally
believe
on the computers that are here that have been transferred from hard drive to hard drive to hard drive of mine from different computers for at least 15 years. That nobody's ever
never
heard.
seen the light
Nobody.
of
Well, I
day
mean, some
on-
people might have heard them at
Oh,
some
man, I've
point.
heard
He's
all of
probably
them.
heard most of them.
But
I
like
have.
on social
But
media,
like,
or any
there's so
platform.
many that.
Okay, maybe not all of them, but I've listened to like 90,
Yeah.
at least 90.
You could be sitting on hits though, you could be sitting on hits.
I
The
mean,
problem is with me though is because of that same thing where it's like when you write in a bubble, sometimes like you even question yourself,
Mhm.
like
well, that
because you
or,
get in your
like,
head of like, well, am I just repeating myself here? Or does
Everybody,
this sound too much
everybody
like something
has
I've already
this
done?
thing where like they genre hop. So then, like, when you genre hop, then you start, like, thinking of ideas, and then when you have the ability to record yourself and do all that, then you're like, when you sit down and you're riffing and you hit record, then it could become something like, with him especially, he has, like, Eros, and then he has, like, Remembering Ellie stuff, which he hasn't done that in a long time, but he has that.
You want to talk about unreleased
Yeah,
material?
and that's what I'm
There's
saying, like, for
tons
that.
of unreleased
So it's
Remembering
like-
Ellie material.
And that's what I'm saying, like, at a certain point, that's how, like, your catalog backs up, because you have, like, these other project ideas, and then it's just like,
well, and then like
shit.
you might like it at the moment, but yet again, because you're your own worst critic,
Keep listening.
you
Keep
step
listening.
away from it for a while, and then you come back and you listen to it, and you're like, I don't know, is it really that good?
Well, plus you gotta think of, like,
Yeah.
you want to, like, depending on how serious you want to do it too, because you don't want to just, like, you gotta set out whether you're just gonna be like a studio project if you release more, or if you're gonna be like trying to, like, do shows, and, like, well, is it gonna sell on its own? You know what I mean? Or is it gonna just sit there and nobody's really gonna listen to it anyways because you're not pushing it? So
Well,
it's a
and here's the thing,
fine
like,
line with that
for those
too.
people that might be watching or listening to this that aren't like in the music business, like, who hear like the idea of like selling and think of like, oh, so you're just interested in selling out. It's like, no, but
no,
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah,
you have
sorry, I
to
gotta
like.
feel like, yeah, you should probably clarify.
You
but-
have to be aware of making yourself somewhat marketable. You just have to, because otherwise you're never going to be able to do anything with it.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to compromise at all, I think. Like, if there's hey, we think you could sound a little more like this, or say more things like this, and that's it's like, I'm not going to compromise.
It's really
my-
what it is. It's finding that thin line
Yeah, it is.
of being yourself 90%
yeah.
and giving what normal, quote unquote,
Mhm.
people would take to be like yourself, but still make it, like,
Palatable to
marketable. And because
Yeah,
at
I
the
get
end of the
that.
day, you can't do it as a full-time, like, job to make a living off of it, to give people
Right,
good
yeah.
content,
That's
if you
not even
can't
the
put the
goal.
time into it because you're not making money to put back into
Well,
it. And that's the thing, like, my own project, it's like, we make money, but we put it back into the band because we want the band to flourish.
Yeah, it's just like business.
So it's
yeah.
like, it's business. You know what I mean? So at a certain point, you do have to think about the business. So it's
Because
like,
otherwise you're just dumping shit tons of
yeah,
money
but,
into
like,
things
let's
that
be
aren't going
real,
anywhere.
like, Controver,
Yep.
if anybody would go listen to them from hearing about it from, like, this, or just knowing us in general, like, it is very trash canny. It's very, like, raw and heavy, and it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
So
Right,
I'm also
yeah.
putting my time into something and having to figure out how to make it marketable as well. So it's like, you got to think about that
Well,
when you're doing
And
it.
once you
reminds
have
me
a
of-
following, you can't lose them. Like, once you
Yeah.
get a following and you start switching up styles, then
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to.
Oh.
You can also set that from the beginning, though,
Mhm.
by, like, pulling in all these different ideas from the get go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
Just being like, yo, this is what we are. We're just gonna go wherever we want, whenever we want. But doing different EPs also makes that plausible, because you can.
Play around with a bunch of different.
This is one EP.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? This is one sound. Well, guess what? This next EP can be completely different because
Yep.
it's a different album. It's different
Right.
EP. It's not
People
an
won't
album,
say you
but-
fell off. You know?
Yeah, you know what I mean. So you could literally but you could still take bits and pieces from that last one, but then do something completely different with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And people can't really get mad at you because it's a whole different theme. You know what I mean? Like, with every album, it would be a different theme. With every EP, it could be a different theme, and it makes it a little bit more free if you use it the way you should use it.
Mhm.
Granted, not everybody does that, unfortunately.
Well,
but
What you were talking about though reminded me of something that our dad said to me many years ago when it came to music stuff. Because I mean, we've had pretty supportive parents when it comes to like doing music.
That's important. That's
Oh,
awesome. Too.
And
Yeah.
I mean, there were definitely times when they got on me for,
It's 10 o'clock.
admittedly being incredibly irresponsible about it at times.
well,
But one of the things that our dad, said to me at one point was, I feel like what you need to do is figure out whether you want to make music a business, whether you want to be somebody in business, like a music. How he said it was, do you want to be a musician or do you want to be an artist? Because there's a difference.
Yeah.
You making music for them, or you making music for you, kind of.
Exactly.
Thing,
And he's like, you can straddle the line and do a bit of both, And ideally,
That's
that's
you
what we
should do.
would want to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Play the fence.
the real world is like, if you want to make music your career, you're gonna have to do a lot of things you don't really want to do,
Yeah, that's true.
and you're gonna have to play a lot of things you don't want to play because you're thinking of it as just a business.
Yeah.
And that's where some people can get kind of
Burn out too. Holy cow.
and where fans can sometimes get skewed on like what they think about somebody because of what they've been doing.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, they might have just taken it as a job.
yeah, god dang, dude.
Like,
Everybody's got to struggle.
They might have just simply done it to make some money because they needed
Yeah,
to,
let them
so that they could take that money and make the cool art project that they were doing.
Mhm.
Like.
Yeah, there is that line for sure.
But so I mean, we're getting closer to time that we've been doing this.
It's a
for little
balancing
bit, but-
act, man. That's what it is. And if you ask me, I care way too much about what my listener thinks. I care way too much.
It's kind of hard not to, though.
And constructive
I
criticism, I'm working on taking that.
I think
better.
that's
I'm
a
trying to-
to each your own kind of a situation, because
Yeah.
I could definitely at times not give a flying fuck what other people think about it, because
Yeah.
at a certain point that's where you get that nitty gritty like stuff that's unique that's gonna make you stand out. I mean,
Well,
granted, and
that pushes you more onto that artist spectrum.
Yeah,
of
and
things
that's
versus the
the-
musician side.
yeah. Well, I mean, depending on how you look at it.
I mean, what you're saying is like your attitude in that is more towards the art and being
Yeah,
creative and
but
and,
like how I
not
look at
caring what
things
people
is
think of
like
Right.
it's
People can be savage, dude. They
Yeah.
can rip your soul out and be
Yeah.
like, "This
But
sucks
I'm like
so
I'm more
bad,
show
but-" It's like,
oriented.
dang, man. I'm sorry.
And I wonder where you got that from.
Yeah, I don't have any idea. I've just like went way further into like not necessarily the theatrics, but like the show.
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
are you gonna do? Like what are you physically
Mm-hmm.
gonna do, and like what kind of dumb shit are you gonna pull? Whether you're in rap or in metal or rock.
Like I've
because
said, I've used this
literally
example
you
before.
can
like,
do it in any genre. It's not just one specific genre.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
seeing people, like, even if I don't care for the music necessarily, but I see these cats on stage, jumping around to the music that they're playing. I'm like, yeah, I get it, dude. Like,
You're
Yeah,
Also,
performing.
more
how
of
is
you.
that being up on the stage by yourself and stuff?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
you're-
my gosh, dude. It's all eyes on you, pal.
Exactly.
Gotta
Well,
get you a hype man.
yeah, right. Well, I admittedly haven't played very many shows, and the show that I did play there in Monticello for the festival, I had a band behind me, so and that's how I like to play anyway. It's much more organic that way. I like drums and guitar and funk.
yeah.
I'd rather not go up there and freaking plug my iPhone in and be like, okay, hold on for the instrumental. You know what I mean? I want that organic, a real live band feel. But it's difficult, especially with at least my situation. Is like, man, even if I found people that were good enough to play all the parts, I'm so picky. So and when it comes to recording music and releasing it, then I kind of lean towards more instrumentals and like. So then what does that do for me? I have a bunch of recorded material that say I wanted to go play shows or tour with, right? So, and then I'm just gonna have to get a band to learn those songs and put like a different feel on it. That's much what most rappers do. They have
At least
their
the good
songs.
ones.
Yeah, right. Kind of like MGK does that thing.
Oh,
he
dude,
plays with a
that's what I
live
like.
show,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
like-
awesome.
Yeah, he has
It's
a bass player. and
yeah,
a
his
drum
drummer's
player.
sick, right?
Yeah,
Rook?
drum is
Yeah,
fucking
it's-
nasty.
Yeah. So that's what I would like to do is just keep that. And that's who I am. Like I love to play drums and shit too. I like to rock out. I like to play
Yeah.
this heavy stuff too. So that's just missing out on that whole element if I just stand there with a mic. Like
That's where I've loved some of the artists
know?
that have started crossing that stuff
Oh,
over.
yeah.
I mean,
that rap rocks or like
Oh,
some
there's-
like Rage
there's
Against the
been some-
Machine type shit.
Or
I like.
even like
Even,
heavier.
well, like
Yeah.
I mean, like Scarlord. Like
Yeah.
I fell in love with Scarlord because of the fact that he comes from being a fan of both hip hop
Mhm.
and hardcore and metal stuff, and he shoved
Merged
it together.
Yeah.
Well, then
And,
you have bands
you
like
know-
Guerrilla Warfare, that, like you
Yeah,
went the way,
Guerrilla
like he
Warfare.
said, like
Yeah.
more rage
Yeah.
style, but it's still like
I've heard of
rap-esque.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh fuck, this is good.
And they have
really good.
not only that, they mix the rap, they mix the metal, and have a message. Like
dude,
even
yeah.
better, dude.
Yeah,
That's why you have Rage Against the Machines freaking starting riots, bro. Because you got to be careful. Music is
We
powerful.
need another Rage album, goddammit.
Dude, yeah, we do.
Of all the
Well,
times
man.
right now is the
Oh,
time.
Hey,
yeah.
I'm not gonna
Like,
lie,
you talk
though.
about inciting a riot. Wow.
I'm saying this just because like Guerrilla Warfare really is that though.
Yeah.
Like, they,
Oh yeah.
They are that like representation of Rage Against the Machine just on steroids.
We were lucky enough to share a show with them.
You
and
did.
they're
Stage with them. That's awesome.
amazing, and I'm so proud of them that they got picked up by Jason Butler like that. They deserve it. That last EP,
Dude, I remember
was
hearing them
phenomenal.
when they started playing that night, because I hadn't heard anything about them up to that point, because they were unknowns, really.
Yeah,
kind of
well,
at
at
the
least
time.
for you, like I had heard of them just because
Like-
of the scene I'm in.
But it was before they had like released like
Oh yeah.
anything really national or anything like that. They were still an underground band.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to it and being
Excuse
like,
me.
"Oh God, this is like a heavier Rage. Like,
Oh yeah.
this is some good shit." Like, and then it was only months, like what, maybe 3 or 4 months after that like suddenly it was like boom, and they started like taking off.
Oh yeah.
Like, but
They're-
I mean, do you have anything like coming up, like any new material?
Oh yeah,
Any,
yeah.
like,
I got
plans for
3 or 4 songs still yet to be recorded. I wish I could say that I'm working on an album, right? But admittedly, I'm not.
Well, we just talked
I'd
about
like
the
to-
fact
yeah,
that we're
it's just hard. I got a lot of singles.
But hey,
I keep a
singles is where it's
constant.
at,
Yeah,
Yeah,
like a lot
honestly,
of songs
man.
that I have sitting on. Yeah, they're in the works and they will be released probably within the next couple months. These last 2 I just recorded did pretty well. At least I got a lot of good feedback from it, so that was a good push for me. Like we were saying with the family thing, this has always just been a hobby, never been anything more than that, right? And probably never will be, but that's okay. But I stopped. I was always writing, but I stopped going to the studio. I stopped caring so much about releasing stuff, and then I did, and then I got some good feedback, and then, like I said, it gave me that push. It was like, man, people actually kind of want to hear it, and if I get that from people and say, hey, if you released more, I would definitely listen to it.
especially when
Like,
you
thanks,
have
dude, I'll go do that.
especially when you have a step up like you did in your material.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
going from where you were to the more recent stuff.
Yeah.
Like was a step more into the positive, like a better
Yes.
place. You stepped up a level.
And I
with
feel
your
like
stuff.
that,
Like,
like the positive thing you said, I want to, dude, we need more of that in this freaking world, man. Like,
Oh, for
holy
sure.
cow. I mean, so if I can just attach that to my music, I'm like, that'll definitely stick somewhere because there's somebody that needs to feel uplifted somewhere. Like, there's,
Oh, yeah.
I want to make music that, like,
especially today.
Like, dang, wow, that makes you forget about all life's problems for a second and just kind of bob your head. That's I want to have that kind of effect. And, yeah, like I said, I care way too much about what my fans think. Definitely do. But I have people reach out to me all the time. Hey, dude, you have any new stuff? I've had people, like, literally ask me to send them things that I've been writing. And I'm humbled by that. Like, hey, I'm like, no, but I got a bunch of stuff written. And they're like, well, send it to me. I want to read it. And I'm like, damn, these people actually care. I'm like, okay, here you go, man. You get that, that leak for free. So that's cool, man. Like I said, it's nice to know people care what I have to say and people like it. And if I ever had to go, jumping around, playing at bars and stuff, people would probably come show up.
Oh yeah, I'd definitely be there.
So
Like,
you got a lot of support. So when you feel support and you feel appreciated and your hard work's paying off, right? Then you just keep doing it, right? If it didn't feel like it was paying off, I'd have quit a long time ago. So, yeah, be expecting more next couple months. I promise. At least 2 or 3 more songs coming out, and then maybe guys, you get lucky, I'll work on an album, right? that sticks to one. Yeah, to one theme and one.
or even like we said earlier, even maybe just
I want to do
write like a an overview of what you want a
Yes.
story to be, and then
Yep.
just do like maybe 4 songs or 5 songs with it. Do a small
Yeah, even
EP,
EP, like you said.
Like,
yeah, that's
where it all
That's-
kind of has a theme and plays together.
I like to challenge myself, and I'm sure you guys the same way. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how you're gonna do
Just
that.
really pushing myself and risking a lot. Like for when I released New World, it was like kind of on the softer side, and I was kind of like,
Dude,
this is a really kind of vulnerable spot for me. I wasn't even really sure about releasing.
oh, dude, and the thing is that like lyrically and even delivery wise, even in the recording, and your performance today, like,
Thank you.
Like there is an emotion that you put through that you can feel in it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Thank you.
And
There's a lot put into
it. Caught my attention. Like, that's why I was like, when we were starting to do scheduling and stuff for this season and everything, it was like, I gotta get you on here.
Yeah, I remember you
Like-
reached out to me, and then I started
Like-
looking at all your material. I'm like, man, he's got a quality setup. I need to get my ass over there, and it worked out nicely, man. Like within a week, you said, hey,
Yeah.
can you? Are you
And
serious?
it's great
I'll be there
for
Saturday.
us, and Tyler, I'm sure you can, say the same thing that I'm going to say here, like, is that it is nice for a change for us to have something that's a little easier to do here in the studio.
Yeah, I didn't have to bring a whole rig over here.
Yeah,
and set
I mean,
up
12 to 16 mics.
Woo.
Oh yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love live music and I love capturing live music, and we've captured some good sets in here. I mean, if you've gone back and watched, anybody who's watching, go back and watch that Louisiana Lot Lizard set from last year.
Yeah, I'll vouch, they were good.
That fucking set is amazing.
They're amazing.
I went and liked all them.
And it's going to be the only time you're probably ever going to see that EP played in its entirety anymore.
Yeah.
But
moving on to the next saga.
But like having you come in and do it this way was so kind of refreshing for me in particular, because it could definitely be a real stressful thing to try to put this all together.
Yeah, and you said you hadn't done it in a while, and now this is like an easy restart.
Well, and like I said, COVID messed up a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah,
like last year, as some of you saw with the podcast, like it was a different setup. The rooms changed a bit. We actually have some lights and a PA setup. It's a little more...
It's season 2 now.
Exactly. And it's just going to keep getting better. But it's like, we started working on that stuff at probably January, February, and our plan was to have started recording podcasts again by March. And that was right when all the shit started hitting the fan with COVID.
Yeah.
So we just kind of kept holding off. Plus, we ran into a few other kind of unexpected things we had to deal with in the studio. But
some technical difficulties.
Some technical things that could have cost.
Well, I believe it. Even just me doing this small set, but hell, it's taken several hours to get the podcast.
Part of that's also because we haven't done this in a while.
Right. So, but I can only imagine having the whole band and the drum.
Imagine having like a 6-person band in here and having to like
doing that crap, man.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I mean. And plus, like I said to you too, like we want to get more diversity in here too. Like we want more hip hop artists in here. We want more R&B artists. We want more, singer songwriter acoustic stuff. We want, I'll bring in country acts too. Like I don't really care. It's all about, as we said ad nauseum last season, this has always been about giving our friends and people in this community a platform to be able to get their stuff out. Like that's what we want to do. Like. Because we have seen and met so many like amazing musicians and talented people in this area, and unfortunately, this area is a bit of a black hole when it comes to the arts getting out.
Underexposed.
Yeah, it's very underexposed, and so there's like so many super talented people in this area, and we're like, let's just use what.
Admittedly, that's a lot my fault on my end, like of the underexposure. I hadn't marketed myself very well. But that's so great that dude, this was nice, man.
I was
to show up, come rap a little bit, and you put
I was like, this will be perfect.
Nice.
This will be perfect for us. Like, it's a great start to our season.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of sets the pace for like, we're going to be doing some different things this year. Like, it's not going to be all the same stuff that like it was last year. So hopefully we can keep a little bit more attention.
And this is new for me too. A lot of time when I release anything, it's just music. Now I can be like, hey, check out this podcast I was on too.
Yeah.
It's just like I said earlier, more content the better. So this is a little refreshing. People are gonna actually, that third song, people listen to that is unreleased anyway. So that's
So we got the exclusive of releasing a new song.
There's a
live version of a new song.
Yeah, live version of a new song and a podcast. So
we appreciate you coming on episode 2.
Yes, thanks guys.
Brudda Murray, check him out.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for coming,
man. Thanks for watching, guys.
And stay tuned for more fun episodes this season.
Oh yeah, we got some good artists coming. I've been talking to some people. It's gonna be an exciting season.
Well, I'm gonna share the shit out of all of your stuff, so it's gonna be popping. The band shop.
See you later, guys.
Peace.